The engines on the Island of Sodor look forward to Halloween. They love Sir Topham Hatt's fireworks and the children dressing up as wizards and witches. They also love Edward's spooky stories. They say that on Halloween, the ghost engine returns to the smelters looking for his lost whistle. Ooh, 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 ah, spooky, the engine said, all shivering a little. Later, Sir Topham Hatt arrived. Thomas, Percy, and Duck, I have a special job for you. You are to collect some scrap from the smelter's yard tonight. On Halloween? Don't worry. You will be back in time for the fireworks. Percy isn't worried about missing the fireworks, teased Thomas. He's a scaredy engine. I am not, called Percy. But he was, a little. At the smelters, all Percy could think about was Edward's ghost engine. Thomas knew Percy was scared, so he teased him even more. What's that up there? Thomas squeaked. Is it a spook? It's just a piece of twisted scrap, Percy said nervously. Isn't it? Thomas was having fun. He kept on teasing Percy. Careful the ghost engine doesn't get you, Thomas said. There's no such thing as ghosts, snapped Percy. Duck felt sorry for Percy. Nobody's brave all the time, said Duck. But I'm not a scaredy engine, Percy insisted. The job was nearly complete. Well done, the yard manager said. Now I'll need one engine to finish up. Duck wanted to pay Thomas back for all his teasing. Please, sir, he said. I'm sure Thomas wouldn't mind staying. Of course not, Thomas boasted. I'm not a scaredy engine. So Duck and Percy left. When Thomas was by himself, every sound and every shadow was spooky. He was beginning to feel very scared. There's no such thing as ghosts, he said nervously. Who's there? Thomas was so busy looking for ghosts, he didn't watch where he was going. The chains felt like ghost fingers. Something's got me! Thomas wheeshed and set off an old steam whistle. Ghost whistle, said Thomas, and he raced away as fast as his wheels could carry him. The ghost engine is after me! It was naughty of Thomas to tease you, Percy, said Duck. He was only playing, said Percy. I hope he hurries up. I wouldn't want him to be late for the fireworks. He's after me! I don't think he'll be late, said Duck. Duck and Percy joined the other engines for the fireworks. Where's Thomas? Percy asked. He'll miss all the fun. It would serve him right after all his teasing, Duck said. But Percy was worried. He went to look for his friend. He found Thomas all alone in the shed. Are you all right, Thomas? He said. Yes, I'm sorry I teased you, Percy, Thomas said. Duck was right. We all feel scared sometimes. And we all have to say sorry sometimes, said his friend. So come on, Thomas. We can watch the fireworks just as well from here. And he was right. It was a moonlit night. Henry was taking a goods train to the station by the lake. Whenever that owl hoots, a mist rolls in, murmured Edward. There's a legend that when the mist's about, there's a ghost about too. Take care on the old line, Henry. Stupid bird, said Henry. Owls, mists, ghosts. Edward's going soft at the boiler. There's no mist. But Henry was wrong. What's that? Cried Henry. It's an amber lamp, murmured his driver. That means proceed with caution. Who's there? No one replied. Henry crept slowly forward. He stopped by a tree. It had a sign nailed to it, "Beware of the viaduct." The driver was surprised. No one warned us about that before. And look, the signal's red. And the gates are closed. And there's a fogman's coat. But where is its owner? Then they saw a light move within the station building. Ghosts! Exclaimed Henry. Edward was right. Something very strange is happening, said his driver. I think it's best we go back. So do I, agreed Henry. By morning, the mist had cleared. A workman was talking about the unsafe viaduct. Lucky you didn't cross it last night. Yes, but we don't know who warned us, replied Henry's driver. Later that day, he spoke to Henry. The viaduct has been repaired. We can take our train back along the old line tonight. Henry really didn't want to. But when nightfall came, he was sizzling nicely. Suddenly, an owl hooted, and then Gordon thundered by. Oh, look, Henry's spooked, said a freight car. Be quiet, snapped Henry. I'm not scared. But he was. A little later, the fog came down. As they approached the same area, they saw the amber light again. Here we go, said Henry's driver. Then, unknown to Henry, the gates mysteriously closed by themselves, and the signal went red. The freight cars had seen everything, and they were spooked. Faster, faster, there's a ghost about. Stop, stop, yelled Henry. A mysterious figure watched Henry go by. Ahead was a landslide blocking the line. Henry braked hard, but the freight cars hit some of the rubble and plunged into the ravine. Just then, Henry's driver saw a strange sight coming towards them. What's that? He said. The fireman laughed. That's our ghost. It's Old Bailey, the fogman. Old Bailey was very cross. I tried to warn you about the viaduct. Why didn't you pay attention? We're sorry, replied the driver. Is there anything we can do to thank you? I'd like to operate that old station. If you let me, I promise I won't spook Henry again. And in a little while, Old Bailey's wish was granted. You and your station will be really useful, said Sir Topham Hatt. Let's hear a hearty thank you to the friendliest, ghost on the island. Everyone cheered, especially Henry, who was the happiest of all.
Thomas is a tank engine who lives at a big station on the island of Sodor. He's a cheeky little engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. He's a fussy little engine, too, always pulling coaches about, ready for the big engines to take on long journeys. And when trains come in, he pulls the empty coaches away so that the big engines can go and rest. Thomas thinks no engine works as hard as he does. He loves playing tricks on them, including Gordon, the biggest and proudest engine of all. Thomas likes to tease Gordon with his whistle. Wake up, lazy bones. Why don't you work hard like me? One day, after pulling the big express, Gordon had arrived back at the sidings very tired. He was just going to sleep when Thomas came up in his cheeky way. Wake up, lazy bones. Do some hard work for a change. You can't catch me. And off he ran, laughing. Instead of going to sleep again, Gordon thought how he could get back at Thomas. One morning, Thomas wouldn't wake up. His driver and fireman couldn't make him start. His fire went out and there was not enough steam. It was nearly time for the express. People were waiting, but the coaches weren't ready. At last, Thomas started. Oh dear, he yawned. He fussed into the station where Gordon was waiting. Hurry up, you, said Gordon. Hurry up yourself, replied Thomas. Gordon, the proud engine, began making his plan to teach Thomas a lesson for teasing him. Almost before the coaches had stopped moving, Gordon reversed quickly and was coupled to the train. Get in quickly, please, he whistled. Thomas usually pushed behind the big trains to help them start, but he was always uncoupled first. This time, Gordon started so quickly they forgot to uncouple Thomas. Gordon's chance had come. Come on, puffed Gordon to the coaches. The train went faster and faster. Too fast for Thomas. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. Beep, beep. Stop, stop. Hurry, 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 laughed Gordon. You can't get away, laughed the coaches. Poor Thomas was going faster than he had ever gone before. He was out of breath and his wheels hurt him, but he had to go on. I shall never be the same again, he thought sadly. My wheels will be quite worn out. At last, they stopped at a station. Thomas was uncoupled, and he felt very silly and exhausted. Next, he went onto a turntable, thinking of everyone laughing at him. And then he ran onto a siding out of the way. Well, little Thomas, chuckled Gordon, now you know what hard work means, don't you? Poor Thomas couldn't answer. He had no breath. He just puffed slowly away to rest and had a long, long drink. Maybe I don't have to tease Gordon to feel important, Thomas thought to himself, and he puffed slowly home.
Thomas and Percy are good friends, but sometimes Percy teases Thomas about being frightened, and he doesn't like that at all. One evening, he was dozing happily, but Percy wanted to talk. Wake up, Thomas. Are you dreaming about the time you thought I was a ghost? Certainly not. Anyway, I was only pretending to be scared. I knew it was you, really. Percy went on teasing him. I hope the guard leaves the light on for you tonight. Why? Asked Thomas. I quite like the dark. Oh, really? Exclaimed Percy. I am surprised. I always thought you were afraid of the dark. I wonder why. Thomas decided to say nothing and went to sleep instead. Next day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. I would like you to go to the harbor tonight. You have to collect something rather unusual. What sort of something? Asked Thomas. Wait and see, replied Sir Topham Hatt. Meanwhile, Percy was moving freight cars into a siding. Henry arrived with his goods train. The signalman changed the switches, and Percy waited on the siding until Henry had steamed by. Then there was trouble. The switches are jammed, called the signalman. I can't switch them back for Percy. The workmen will have to mend them in the morning. It's too late now. Said Percy's driver. I'm sorry, Percy, but you'll have to stay here for the night. Where are you going? Asked Percy. Home for tea, replied the fireman. Percy was speechless. He watched as the other engines went home to the shed. Nighttime came, and Percy began to feel very lonely. Oh, dear, he murmured. It's very dark. Oh, what's that? It was only an owl, but Percy didn't realize this. Oh, I wish Thomas were here too, he sighed. Thomas was waiting for his mysterious load at the harbor. Suddenly, there it was. Cinders and ashes, cried Thomas. It's a dragon. Don't worry, laughed his driver. This dragon is made of paper. It's for the carnival tomorrow. Workmen lifted the dragon onto Thomas's low loader and put lights all around it for protection. Then Thomas set off into the misty night. Percy was asleep on his siding and had no idea that Thomas was approaching him. Percy woke up with a start. Help! Cried Percy. I'm not going to open my eyes until my driver comes. Next morning, the switches were mended and Percy puffed back to the junction. Gordon was just about to leave with the express. You'll never guess what I saw last night. Gordon was in no mood for puzzles. I'm a busy engine. I don't have time for your games. I've seen a huge dragon. It was covered in lights. Gordon snorted. You've been in the sun too long. Your dome has cracked. When the other engines heard the news, they laughed too. Look out, Percy, chuckled James, or the dragon may gobble you up. No one believes me, huffed Percy. Maybe I did imagine the dragon after all. But Percy soon found out that he hadn't. Help! Save me! Cried Percy. It's all right, whistled Thomas, and he explained about the carnival. By the way, how was your night out? Percy decided to tell Thomas the truth. Well, Percy, said Thomas, maybe we do get scared sometimes, but if we're not afraid to tell each other, then that means we're quite brave, too. Diesel, the new engine, was sulking. The freight cars would not stop singing rudely at him. Duck was horrified. Shut up, he ordered, and bumped them hard. I'm sorry our cars were rude to you, Diesel. Diesel was still furious. It's all your fault. You made them laugh at me. Nonsense, said Henry. Duck would never do that. We engines have our differences, but we never talk about them to the cars. That would be disgraceful, said Gordon. Disgusting, put in James. Despicable, finished Henry. Diesel hated Duck. He wanted him to be sent away, so he made a plan. He was going to tell lies about Duck. Next day, he spoke to the cars. I see you like jokes. You made a good joke about me yesterday. I laughed and laughed. Duck told me one about Gordon. I'll whisper it. Don't tell Gordon I told you. And he sniggered away. Ha, 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 guffawed the cars. Gordon will be cross with Duck when he knows. Let's tell him and get back at Duck for bumping us. They laughed rudely at the engines as they went by. Soon Gordon, Henry, and James found out why. Disgraceful, said Gordon.
Disgusting,
put in James. Despicable, finished Henry. We cannot allow it. They consulted together. Yes, they said. He did it to us, we'll do it to him, and see how he likes it. Duck was tired out. The cars had been cheeky and troublesome. He wanted a rest in the shed. The 3 engines barred his way. Keep out. Stop fooling, said Duck. I'm tired. So are we, hissed the engines. We are tired of you. We like Diesel. We don't like you. You tell tales about us to the cars. I don't. You do. I don't. You do. Sir Topham Hatt came to stop the noise. Duck called me a galloping sausage, spluttered Gordon. Rusty red scrap iron, hissed James. I'm old square wheels, fumed Henry. Well, Duck? Duck considered. I only wish, sir, he said gravely, that I'd thought of those names myself, if the dome fits. He made cars laugh at us, accused the engines. Sir Topham Hatt recovered. He'd been trying not to laugh himself. Did you, Duck? Certainly not, sir. No steam engine would be as mean as that. Diesel lurked up. Now, Diesel, you heard what Duck said. I can't understand it, sir. To think that Duck, of all engines, I'm dreadfully grieved, sir, but no, nothing. I see, said Sir Topham Hatt. Diesel squirmed and hoped he didn't. I'm sorry, Duck, but you must go to Edward's station for a while. I know he will be glad to see you. As you wish, sir. Duck trundled sadly away, while Diesel smirked with triumph. Every year, on the date of the accident, it runs again as a warning to others, plunging into the gap, shrieking like a lost soul. Percy, what are you talking about? The ghost train. Driver saw it last night. Where? Asked Thomas and Toby. He didn't say. Oh, it makes my wheels wobble to think of it. Puh, said Thomas. You're just a silly little engine. I'm not scared. Thomas didn't believe in your ghost, said Percy next morning. His driver laughed. Neither do I. It was only a pretend ghost story. Percy was disappointed. That evening he came back from the harbor. Percy knew where he was, even in the dark. Crow's Farm Crossing. We shan't be long now. He liked running at night. The rails hummed and the signal light shone green. But a broken cartload of lime lay ahead. Sam the farmer had just gone for help. Percy broke the cart to smithereens. Lime flew everywhere. He puffed quickly to the nearest signal box. Percy's driver explained what had happened. I'll see to it, said the signalman. But you'd better clean Percy, or people will think he's a ghost. Percy chuckled. Do let's pretend I'm a ghost and scare Thomas. That'll teach him to say I'm a silly little engine. Toby promised to help. Thomas was being oiled up for his evening train. Percy's had an accident, cried Toby. Poor engine, said Thomas. Botheration! That means I'll be late. They've cleared the line for you, but there's something worse. Out with it, Toby. I can't wait all evening. I've just seen something, said Toby. It looked like Percy's ghost. It said it was coming here to warn us. Puh, who cares? Don't be frightened, Toby. I'll take care of you. Wailed Percy. No, not by the smoke on my chimney, chim. I'll chuff and I'll puff and I'll break your door in. Oh dear, exclaimed Thomas. It's getting late. Oh, I'd no idea. Oh, I must find Annie and Clarabelle. It was morning when Thomas returned. Where have you been? Asked Toby. Well, said Thomas, I knew you'd be sad about Percy, and I didn't like to intrude. I slept in the freight shed and... Oh, sorry, can't stop. Gotta see a coach about a train. Percy was none the worse for his adventure, and was still enjoying himself enormously. He had heard everything. Well, what do you know about that? Anyone would think, chuckled Toby, that our Thomas had just seen a ghost.
What's that moving in the corner? What's that shadow on the wall?
Don't be afraid, don't be scared, it really is nothing at all.
But I saw something in the corner. I saw that shadow on the wall.
It's just your imagination.
Look, it's just the wise old owl.
Boo, boo, choo choo, don't be afraid of the dark. It's easily explained, you see why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo choo, don't wander from your track. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be turn to night.
But something moved in the corner. A shadow crossed the wall.
He closed his eyes, counted 10.
And remembered the wise old owl.
Boo, boo, choo-choo. Don't be afraid of the dark. When the lights go out and you have your doubts, why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo-choo. Don't wander from your mark. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark. So don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark. Boo, boo, choo-choo. Don't be afraid of the dark. It's easily explained. You see why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo-choo. Don't wander from your track. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark.
What's that moving in the corner? What's that shadow on the wall?
Don't be afraid, don't be scared. It really is nothing at all.
But I saw something in the corner. A shadow crossed the wall.
It's just your imagination.
Look, it's just the wise old owl.
Boo, boo, choo-choo. Don't be afraid of the dark. It's easily explained. You see why things go bump in the night. Boo, 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 choo-choo. Don't wander from your track. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be afraid of the dark. No, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, don't be. Don't be afraid of the dark. Boo!
One morning, Sir Topham Hatt and his grandchildren came to see Toby. Come on, Toby. We're all going to the seaside. We will ride in Henrietta. Yes, sir, said Toby happily. They came to a small seaside station. Soon the children were playing in the sand, building a splendid castle. Sir Topham Hatt inspected it. My word, it's a very fine castle. Have you seen a real one like it? Yes, replied the children. It's here on the island, and they showed him a map. Pondered Sir Topham Hatt. They met Toby at the harbor. Come along, we are going exploring. Soon they were in the wildest part of the island. They stopped by a lonely signal box. Where are you going? Asked the signalman. We're trying to find an old castle. I know the place, sir, said the signalman. There's a small junction not too far down the line. Just switch the points. When the firemen switched the points, their adventure really began. Toby pushed past branches and bushes until they came to another little junction. There they saw two signs saying, "To the castle" and "To the mine." We'll go to the castle first. Toby stopped by an old water tower. There's the castle. Yes, replied Sir Topham Hatt. And now we shall visit the mine. Once upon a time, the mine had been worked by the little engines, and their lines were still in place. But now everything was very rusty and overgrown. Sir Topham Hatt was most impressed, but Toby was rather scared. He was glad when it was time to go home. I think the castle and the mine will make a fine place for visitors, but it will take some hard work first. Yes, sir, said Toby nervously. Sir Topham Hatt's plans were soon put into action, but Toby was still worried. I'm sure this place is haunted, he thought. It's our turn to stay here on guard tonight, Toby. Oh, yes, why not? Stuttered Toby. Beware of the ghost, Toby, Thomas said. What ghost? Asked Toby. The old warrior ghost. Every night he lights his fire, then goes hunting. Toot toot! Goodbye. Night came. Toby looked anxiously around. Everything seemed rather spooky. Quite suddenly, he heard a strange wheezing sound. It's the ghost, he wailed. What ghost? His driver asked. It's the old warrior. He's come to hunt me down. Don't be so daft. We'll go and investigate. They returned quite soon. The old warrior wants to meet you, laughed his fireman. Can't it wait till morning? Replied Toby. Ghosts don't work day shifts, said his driver. Toby bravely made his way. Well, bless my bell, he exclaimed. There, in front of him, was a little old engine. This is your ghost, Toby, said the signalman. His name's really Bertram, but we call him the Old Warrior because he's so brave. Bertram and Toby are now friends. They take the visitors to the castle and the mine. If there are any ghosts here, they certainly help to make the place very happy. Early one morning, Gordon's fire would not light. I don't know what's wrong, sighed the firelighter. There must be gremlins about. What are gremlins? Asked Percy. I've heard that they're little green men who play tricks, replied Thomas. Can we find one? Pah, said James. Gremlins don't exist. They're just an excuse when things go wrong. If firelighter says there are gremlins, there are. Ha, snorted James. Sir Topham Hatt had heard everything. Silence, he said. I am expecting a VIP, a very important person today. She has heard that all my engines are really useful. Please prove it. Yes, sir, they all said. As long as the gremlins let us. What gremlins? The ones in Gordon's fire, sir. That's why he's not ready yet. I'll see about that, thundered Sir Topham Hatt. And he did. Gordon, I expect you to be on your best behavior today. You are to pull the special coach for my special visitor. But no high speeds, please. She won't like that. Gordon was proud and pleased. He was waiting for his special coach when Percy puffed in with some freight cars. What's the matter, Gordon? You're late. Driver says there's gremlins in the turntable, replied Gordon. They must be everywhere, squeaked Percy. At last, the turntable was mended, and Gordon puffed away with the special coach. He was soon working hard to make up for lost time. After he arrived at the station, Sir Topham Hatt became concerned. Where's Thomas? He wondered. He's supposed to be bringing my visitor from the docks. Huh, huffed Gordon. Thomas isn't really useful if he's late. But it wasn't long before Thomas arrived. I'm sorry. A cow strayed on the line and we had to wait for the farmer to take her away. But driver says your visitor is here safe and sound. Indeed she is, smiled Sir Topham Hatt. How nice to see you. Who is it? Whispered Percy. I don't know, replied Thomas. But Sir Topham Hatt is certainly keen to please her. He's arranged a special party for her. She's got a dog as well, said Percy. Well, Come on, Thomas, said the driver. You need a drink.
Pa!
Puffed Gordon.
Thomas is just a lazy little engine. Sir Topham Hatt is expecting me to arrive on time. We're late because of Thomas.
Gordon's driver decided to make up for lost time. Then there was trouble. I think we better slow down. This is an old line and could make things uncomfortable for the VIP. And it did. She was taking a bath and the water was slopping all over the place. Oh! She cried. Gordon was very relieved to reach his final destination, where Thomas was waiting to collect Sir Topham Hatt and his special visitor. He blew an extra long whistle. This frightened the visitor's dog so much that he fled from the station and ran into a field where a bull was grazing. The bull frightened the little dog even more. He ran back again, onto the platform and over the bridge. Row! 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 He didn't stop until he jumped straight into Thomas's cab. But he had a wonderful ride all the way to the docks. "What's the dog's name?" asked the fireman. "Well, after today's events, I think I'll rename him Gremlin," Sir Topham Hatt chuckled. "In that case, I've met one at last. Ha ha!" "Excuse me, sir, but who is your very important visitor?" "Why, didn't I tell you? This lady is my mother, and she agrees with me. You are indeed really useful engines, and my mother, of course, is always right." Ha 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 ha! It was winter on the island of Sodor. The first fogs had begun to roll in from the sea. Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle loved the quiet of Misty Valley. But Thomas must be careful of rocks that sometimes roll onto the tracks. Cyril the fogman has a very important job. He puts detonators on the tracks to warn the engines when there's fog ahead. "Ooh," shivered Thomas as he ran over the detonator. "That made my axles tingle." "Cyril's done his job," said his driver. "We better slow down. There's fog ahead." "Thank you, Cyril," said Thomas. That night at the sheds, Sir Topham Hatt had something special to show the engines. It was very large and strange looking. "What is it?" asked Percy. "It's a new invention, a railway foghorn," said Sir Topham Hatt. "It warns you when there's fog ahead, like this." "That's loud," said Percy. "Too loud," huffed James. "Sounds like a tugboat to me," grumbled Gordon. Thomas looked worried. "What will Cyril do now?" he asked. "He will be getting a much-needed rest," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Besides, this new foghorn will be more reliable." "Poor Cyril," whispered Thomas. "He's been scrapped." The next day, Percy was cheerfully chuffing through Misty Valley when suddenly... "Oh, jeepers," exclaimed Percy. "That foghorn is so loud it rattles my dome. And it doesn't even make my axles tingle." "Still, we better slow down," said his driver. "There's fog ahead." The foghorn had been so loud that it made the hillside shake. No sooner was Percy out of sight when one rock fell, then another, and another. Before long, the track was blocked, and the foghorn was crushed. Not far away, Thomas was happily puffing right on time. "I can't see a thing," said Thomas. And then, before he could even think of anything else, "Bust my buffers!" cried Thomas. "What happened to the foghorn?" "I don't know," said his driver, "but at least nobody's been hurt." "Toby will be coming down the line any minute," said his fireman. "If there's no fog warning," said Thomas, "he'll run into us." "Leave it to me," called a voice from the fog. "It's Cyril," said Thomas. "I hope he's in time." Toby and his coach Henrietta were chuffing along. Toby was looking forward to a well-earned drink at the next station when... "Fog detonators," puffed Toby. "There must be fog ahead," said his driver. "We better slow down." And just around the next bend, with his axle still tingling, Toby was very glad they did. Otherwise, they would have crashed into Thomas's wreck. Soon the tracks were cleared and Thomas was back on the rails. "If it hadn't been for Cyril," said Thomas, "Toby might have had a worse accident than me." "Instead of replacing Cyril with the foghorn," said Sir Topham Hatt, "we'll replace the foghorn with Cyril. You're clearly more reliable." "Thank you, sir," said Cyril. "And thank you," said Toby. "New inventions are all very well," said Thomas. "But they don't make my axles tingle," said Percy.
It was a beautiful day on the Island of Sodor. Donald and Douglas are Scottish twins. They enjoy working on Sir Topham Hatt's railway. But sometimes they long for Scotland, their old home. One day, Sir Topham Hatt called them to the docks. Lord Callan's castle is finally reopening. There is to be a grand celebration tomorrow. I need you to take the banners, bunting, and bagpipes to the castle. Harvey, you must load them straight away. Yes, sir, chuffed Harvey. The twins were excited. Going to Lord Callan's castle would be like going home again. Soon, Harvey had finished loading the freight. "Where are you going?" asked Percy. "Lord Callan's castle," Donald proudly announced. "By Castle Lock." "I'm glad I'm not going to Castle Lock," wheezed Percy nervously. "Scared the monster might get you," teased Douglas. "He might," said Donald. "There's no monster." "There is too." "There is not." "Is too." "Is not." "Is too." Lord Cannon's castle is in Misty Valley. Donald and Douglas were determined to get the important goods to the castle in time. They puffed proudly around the lock towards their destination. "There it is!" cried Donald. "We're almost there!" shouted Douglas. But there was trouble ahead. Trees had fallen across the line. Donald and Douglas stopped just in time. Then, suddenly, there was a loud crash. The brake van had been hit by a landslide and come off the rails. They were stuck. "We could take the causeway," said Donald's driver. Douglas's driver knew the causeway was old and rickety. "It's too dangerous," he said. The twins were worried. "We'll never get to the castle now," chuffed Donald. "I'll call for help." "Splendid outfit, sir." Sir Topham Hatt was trying on his present from Lord Callan when he heard the news. "Donald and Douglas trapped by the lock," he said. "I'll send help as soon as I can." But the hours passed. It grew dark and cold, and still no help had come. Suddenly, the twins spotted something strange through the mist. "What's that?" called Donald. "Is it the monster?" cried Douglas. "For sure it is," answered Donald. "It's not a monster, it's us." It was Harvey and the breakdown crane. Donald and Douglas were relieved. By morning, the lines were clear. Donald and Douglas hurried off to the castle. Lord Callan's workers were waiting to unload the freight cars. Soon the castle was decorated. The grand opening was a great success. Lord Callan was pleased. "A splendid pair of engines." "And very useful," added Sir Topham Hatt. "Oh, hey!" agreed the twins.
In the summertime, the branch line station masters enjoy a friendly competition for the most beautiful station on the island of Sodor. The engines love to help too. One evening, Sir Topham Hatt came to the sheds. "I want Percy to collect some flower bushes for Lower Tidmouth Station," he said. "They're at Maithwaite." "Maithwaite?" Percy said. Yes, sir," he added nervously. Percy chuffed anxiously through the thickening fog. He doesn't like traveling to Maithwaite at night. The line passes through a junction next to a spooky old quarry mine. Percy hoped the signal at the junction would be green. He didn't want to stop next to the mine, but the signal was red. He had to stop. Suddenly, he saw something. "Bouncing buffers!" cried Percy. His driver hadn't seen the old chimney sink into the ground. The signal changed. Percy was so scared, he steamed away as fast as he could. The next day, Percy was telling Donald and Douglas about the disappearing chimney. "It's the naughty gnomes," teased Donald. "We fat men with big feet, they make strange things happen," said Douglas. "It's legend. They steal your wheels and filch your funnels." Percy didn't want to believe them, but he wasn't sure. Sir Topham Hatt was waiting for Percy at Dryall Station. "I want you to collect some freight cars from the abandoned mine," he said. Yes, sir," Percy answered, but he really didn't want to go there again. Percy hoped he wouldn't see anything else disappear. He slipped into the sidings and buffered up to the freight cars. "Spooky," stammered Percy. Suddenly, another building at the old mine sank into the ground. "What was that?" shouted his driver. "Double bouncing buffers!" shrieked Percy. He was so scared, he lurched forward and rammed the freight car. "Naughty gnomes!" cried Percy. He steamed away faster than before, all the way back to Lower Tidmouth Station. Percy's driver told Sir Topham Hatt what they had seen. "It's the naughty gnomes," cried Percy. "They like to cause trouble. It's legend." "Nonsense," said Sir Topham Hatt. "The old buildings are collapsing into empty mine shafts, that's all." "But I saw the gnomes," protested Percy. "Of course you did," said Sir Topham Hatt. "Garden gnomes." "Garden gnomes?" "To decorate Lower Tidmouth Station," Sir Topham Hatt said. "They're not scary. Garden gnomes bring good luck." And he ordered Percy to return immediately and get them. Percy was scared, but he knew he had to be responsible, so he carried on. "I'm not scared. I'm not scared." He waited for something else spooky to happen, but it didn't. And Sir Topham Hatt was right. The garden gnomes weren't scary at all. His driver and firemen had collected the gnomes, and Percy took them straight back to Lower Tidmouth Station. Later that week, the station master thanked Percy. "We wouldn't have won our competition without your garden gnomes, Percy." Percy was very proud. "You were right, sir. Naughty gnomes can be lucky after all."
They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8, shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue, they're the really useful crew, all with different roles to play around Tidmouth sheds or far away. Down the hills and round the bends, Thomas and his friends. Thomas, he's the cheeky one, James is vain but lots of fun. Percy pulls the mail on time, Gordon thunders down the line. Emily really knows her stuff, Henry 2 10 hubs and a puffs. Edward wants to help and share, Toby he is wise and square. They're 2, they're 4, they're 6, they're 8, shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue, they're the really useful crew, all with different roles to play around Tidmouth sheds or far away. Down the hills and round the bends, Thomas and his friends. Thomas is the cheeky one, James is vain but lots of fun. Percy pulls the mail on time,